the metal of the car using that technology, then became these hoods. I only use metal parts that come right from the factory. I initially started off by found materials, but what I've discovered is that a lot of institutions can't display them because the possibility that there's toxic materials or something contained in there. So I just use objects that are meant, right clean, right from the factory. This particular line is a Tercel, T-E-R-C-E-L, and the reason why I selected is not only I love the proportions and the shape of it, but also the play on words where terse, T-E-R-S-E, means something brilliant and shiny, and it is a cell. So I'm sort of playing around with that. I've done about, I think, somewhere between 14 and 17, and most recently the British Museum commissioned one done with copper, a copper leaf on top of the steel, and that was really good because they said some really nice things. They said it was the most important addition to the North American collection in many years. Promptly sent it off to Australia for the Commonwealth Head of States meeting, and from there it went to Abu Dhabi, Bonn, Germany, and back to London. And it's nice that objects go like that, but then, well, I won't go down that path, which is just like, what does it mean when it's in all these other places as opposed to what does it mean when it's in the studio, which is very much attached to my background as a Haida artist, where many of my relatives produce artwork that's sold, and I've often asked, particularly over the second or third drink, late in the evening, what does it mean to you when you sell a totem pole and it's in West Vancouver? Does it mean the same thing in West Vancouver as it does in Massive? And something happens to the context changes the meaning so much that sometimes I don't really want to think a lot about it because there's a lot of anxiousness about that. But anyway, so hoods continue. This one is in gold. I probably won't do too many more in gold because it's very difficult to get the leaf laid out so accurately, and I'm a sloppy guy.
It's actually gold leaf?
Yeah.
Does the hood come to you unpainted?
Yes. Yeah, it's just a raw metal object. Yeah. And then what I've done here is I prep the surface, put the leaf on it, put a layer of polymer acrylics on top of it, and then paint it, and then put another layer of polymer acrylics on it. And what I'm trying to do is create this depth illusion because the light is actually going underneath the pigments. And the one that I'm working on right now will probably have multiple layers. I think it's quite exciting. I'm using, I've left behind the sort of the black pigment, and I'm starting to play more with colors. And the ones that I'm working on now are extremely colorful and quite exciting. I moved from the hoods to these flaps. David Reed and I were talking about this. I selected this flap for its shape, the contours and the mechanisms on the back, only to find out, somewhat to my alarm, that I had now the owner of all the remaining Nissan 200 SX fuel caps in the world. There are no more left in the factories, so I sort of worked myself into a dead-end alley there, so I'm trying to figure out where to go because the affection with the automobile surface still remains. Finally, just on terms of your question on automobiles, in Haida we have a currency which is called a hood, a copper, and it's a shield, and they're extremely expensive, and they have amazing presence. In part, not only because they represent the accumulation of wealth, but more importantly, they represent the translation of material wealth into enduring wealth, incorporeal wealth, transgenerational wealth, because they develop this lineage and history over time. So they've we get pretty excited by these things. And so I was wondering, what was it in today's society that was the equivalent? And I think it's automobiles. I think we make a lot of assumptions about that person that's driving that car because it looks a particular way. So I was going to try not to talk too much. I was going to sort of try to be more of a Q&A. Yeah.
So you're talking about cars as corporate wealth, but what about cars as status symbols? And how that plays into your art. That's a Tercel versus a Nissan, whatever, versus a Porsche. Those are also status symbols.
Exactly.
So are you accepting those status symbols? Are you working with them, or are you negating them?
Well, I don't know if I'm commenting on them for sure. I think that the feedback I'm getting is people, I have said a couple of times to Doug Gallo said, I'd like to get out of this, and he's saying, and we have this conversation about the reaction that people have to this and how working with automobiles in this way and how people are asking these questions that you're asking about themselves, how they look at vehicles as status symbols. So I think waking up the conversation, but I don't know in terms of my impact. In terms of monetary value, this plate here is $18,000. It's a large object, it's an expensive object, but it also requires a big piece of space. And what I like about these objects here is they're more of a citizen's art. I mean, they are still not inexpensive objects. But this is something you can take and you can put it into your bathroom. You can put it anywhere in your house. It's small. It fits into the life, I think, both in terms, in terms of art as value and all those sort of things, which fortunately people like Risa and Doug Udell Gallery take care of that stuff. So I can sort of immune myself a little bit, right? But I need to be alert to that. And so I was really happy to find something, because I was worried that these things, that the price really was creating the sense that the elitism was just a bit too obvious for me to reconcile with my